Good morning to everyone online, or good evening. Words, uh, attachment. It's one of those words, yes. Non-attachment, attachment. Tie is yet to, how do you say attachment? Yet to something, yeah. Um, so I'm very attached to a cup of coffee in the morning. And you might say to me, oh, Bante, bad. You really shouldn't be attached to your coffee. And I'll say, mind your own business. So there's almost like a moral implication there. Bad monk, right? Again, you have you have words as opinions, and then words as ubaya, skillful means, and so you find words being bandied about in Buddhist culture, which are used in all manner of ways. So the word, in terms of, let's say, if we think in terms of meditation, uh, it it's good to know that we're talking about stream of consciousness rather than our social realities. So if I use the metaphor of background, foreground, I'm really talking about our meditative experience. So I'm glad that when we're driving through Bangkok, Vibhun stays in the foreground. I'm very grateful for that. So if he starts to, "Oh, I'm just in the background," we might be dead. So it gets ridiculous when sometimes you use that language in the wrong context. Although you could see that if you were at a really difficult family committee meeting and you were being caught in the foreground of opinions and views and passions and you were able to abide as the background, it might be very, very skillful. So in because we're talking about meditation, one of the ways that I like to think about non-grasping, I mentioned it this morning, is the idea of availability and preoccupation. I think you've heard me talk about that. So let's say, and that fits with the metaphor background, foreground. So background for me, the way I use language as a tool, not as a doctrine, background is availability. And then foreground is the events uh, of sense experience, of memories or thoughts or sounds of workers or whatever it might be. So in terms of non-grasping or non-attachment, let's say in the morning meditation, um, let's say there's dullness, sleepiness. So non-grasping would be staying, would be not being preoccupied with dullness, right? If I'm preoccupied with dullness, it means my mind is just caught in the dullness. So non-grasping would be remaining available. And that would be in Satipatthana. The yogi knows dullness as dullness. The yogi knows brightness as brightness. Yeah. So you could see that in the morning meditation, if there's dullness, I have to figure out a way to not be preoccupied or attached or lost in dullness. So that's what we're doing. Now, if I can sustain availability, uh, maybe then the dullness goes and then the mind is brighter, and then interesting thoughts of traveling to Tisarana for next Katina in October 27th, 2024. Little advert there. Um, and maybe that's a fun idea, an interesting idea, and the mind gets preoccupied with that through thinking, fantasizing in the future. So the same principle, non-preoccupation. And then the yogi knows the becoming mind as the becoming mind, and so on and so forth. So then, how long in a period of time can we remain not preoccupied, non-attached, or available? And that would mean, to me, would be the capacity to have strategies around the way each of us individually gets preoccupied. So dullness is a very, very obvious one. It really can preoccupy your attention so much so that you're not even aware of your body, and your head is on your chin and you've lost the plot, as it were. Um, but other things too. So that to me is a very simple model of sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension. It fits the Satipatthana Sutta, I think, right? Um, and it's nothing special. It's not something extraordinary to know dullness is dullness. It can be difficult. So in meditation, I find it very helpful. I think we all do, to have a really clear inner logic of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And my inclination, as the talk yesterday, last night, was the curiosity about the unconditioned. Now, in conventional life, um, we use a GPS to get here. I'm curious about getting here. I'm curious about the objects. I'm concerned about the objects. With healthcare, if I have some condition, I'm curious about the object. How can I not fall down and wreck my shoulder? All the rest of it, but also, and I think that part of life, we know how to do that. Hopefully, I mean, we're adults and so on, and we try to develop the skills to be good citizens and good people of responsibility. So we have sila and such like. Um, but now, as meditators, I don't know about you, but I am curious about what Luangpor realized for some reason. I am curious about what the Buddha realized. I am curious about the say what Luangpor was and so on. And that curiosity isn't just about them as a personality. It has to be something about my potential too, because this is what these teachers offer us. They don't say you have to replicate like I don't have to replicate Ajahn Chah's charisma or Luangpor quietness. That's not the point of it, to be a personality. It's to realize the freedom that they have. And so how can I go about that? And to me, as I was saying last night, that language of conditioned and unconditioned is a very, very helpful logical premise in which my attitudes and my considerations and my intentions are grounded in a very logical kind of thinking. And so, if there is the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, and I'm just always preoccupied, all my bandwidth is taken up with the conditioned, i.e., thoughts, emotions, memory, past, future, bodily feelings, projects, weaving, making furniture. If my if my bandwidth is full with that, then it's not available for this mysterious understanding of the unconditioned. If I seek the unconditioned with tanha, our teaching says no, tanha, in the way we talk about tanha, is always about seeking experience. So tanha in the definitions, it's either being absorbed into experience, kama tanha, which is the idea of consuming, consuming an experience all the time. You're preoccupied with it. It could be fun. Um, or trying to get rid of or trying to become bhava and vibhava. So when you abandon those strategies, what happens? Well, you're available. If even if I'm kind of present to the way things are and I'm trying to get something, I'm actually not I'm not available because my mind is seeking something rather than noticing what is. And you have to go back to that theme again and again. So background, foreground might be a helpful metaphor. Availability might be non-grasping, or sati sampajanya, if you like the Pali, whatever language works for you. But this is the language of practice the logic of practice rather than the language of opinion. And so much of Buddhist discourse is usually just opinions. It's all right, opinions about rebirth or things like that. And we can sound either very clever or very stupid in that way, but it's different than actually the ubaya, the skillful means of language applied to your own predicament, your own practice, and then the samma sankappa, the right thinking around that. So do you like one? Do you have a kind of a strategy for dullness? Are you aware when dullness arises that it's an object, or you quickly become the subject and fall asleep? Do you have a pathway for sustaining availability in the midst of dullness? Annoyance. Are you conscious of annoyance as an object, or do you become the annoyed person? Um, do you have a pathway for sustaining availability in the midst of annoyance, or do you become preoccupied with annoyance? Um, are you cognizant of internet shopping during the retreat in your mind, right? When the lovely object comes into mind and you know you actually really need it and you strategize how you're going to buy it, are you aware of that as an object, or do you become the shopper? I mean, it's fun, okay, and so on and so forth. So, do you have a strategy for not going into the virtual store in your mind and staying available? So, where does preoccupation take place in your psyche, in your conditioning? And it's neither, it's not, this isn't a judgment, like a moral judgment. Oh, there I go. I'm thinking of buying something again. That's just a moral judgment. But this model of background, foreground, letting go, like Ploy Wong, is a kind of a difficult word, isn't it? Very difficult word. Ploy Wong, what does that mean? But I find like this way of thinking, well, when I'm preoccupied with something, I can see that. When I'm not preoccupied, I'm not dismissing it like dullness. I can know dullness and not be lost in it, say. And then Ploy Wong makes more sense to me. I can feel annoyed about something, but not be lost in it. I know annoyance feels that way. And then Ploy Wong makes a lot more sense to me. If I just say Ploy Wong, then sometimes I feel I should never feel annoyed or that I should always be a certain way. But I don't think what Ploy Wong is about. It's about the non-grasping of any condition whatsoever. So for the rest of this retreat and the rest of your life, maybe consider how you use the language of Ploy Wong, letting go, non-attachment. How does it have a kind of logical sensibility in the way you practice, or is it just one of those ideas that actually confuses you? Because if you have a good sense of what the work is that we're doing, then these words are very helpful. So like to have a like say like to have a pathway of staying awake with dullness, to me is a really logical way of approaching the condition of dullness. It's very helpful for me. So we have logical thought, and then we have the teaching, and then we have our own particular problems and their own insights around it. So it's a universal teaching, but it's very personal, isn't it? Each of us is facing this in a different way. So maybe consider that during the retreat. Um, if you find that the background foreground metaphor helpful, okay. If not, that's fine. And then this sense of not being preoccupied as opposed to not having any experience. That's different, right? Thinking that I should never feel jealous or I should never feel uh, judgmental. That's not what Ploy Wong is about. Ploy Wong is about the identity with and being lost in. So see that difference. And if your mind starts to present, I shouldn't be this way, huh? Then don't get preoccupied with that. So let's say I feel uh, annoyed at something. The builders say, silly, but whoa, all this noise. I came here for peace, right? First of all, that's preoccupation. And then I notice the annoyance, but rather than saying, oh, annoyance is like this, I jump one step and say, you idiot. How can you be so annoyed? You've been a monk for 50. That's another preoccupation. So it's all around self, ego. So wherever you wake up, Luangpor Sumedho's genius is it's like this. Satipatthana is dullness is like this, or jealousy is like this. So Ploy Wong is not. It's not saying that you don't have emotions because that would not be human. Ploy Wong is saying it's like this. It's more that way. So consider where you're at with that language, and then see if you can apply it to sustaining awareness. As we're always taught. So sustaining awareness, does that mean control? I mean that's one of the misunderstandings we all have. Does that mean like the walking meditation means I'm always controlled? And what does the control define you as? Well, that I never think, usually. But that's not human. Whereas the awakened mind knows, oh, thinking is arising, thinking is ceasing. This is a thought of anger, this is a thought of love, satipatthana, sati sampajanya, this kind of Nepali language. All right, something to consider. Um, so I won't give any instruction, but we can just carry on and meditate for an hour or so.